246, how are you doing? Fine, yeah, just fine, all right. Oh, so we covered a little bit about the pacemakers for those who were here, and we covered John Madley's showdown, the scary stuff. So I hope you did a diaper change during the break because it's gonna get scarier. All right, let's log in. It's a nice one. For those who appreciate the old school of things. Of course, I've been breaking stuff since the age of 12. I've been with companies such as Sony Ericsson and IOActive, and been traveling all over the world, everything from Abu Dhabi to Russia. Work with very big companies in the Fortune 500 sector. Spend a lot of times in unhackable environments. And of course, just like you guys, I love IoT. I'm going to cover a protocol that you probably heard about, or maybe not, most haven't. When I did this in DEF CON, they just shook their heads and said, I don't know what you're talking about. What is this? It's used more on devices than you would think. And when I stumbled upon this, I read the manual, of course, like everybody else does. What is Mqtt? So it was invented in 1998 and 1999 by Andy Stanford Clark and Arlene Nipper. They wanted to create a small communication protocol that did not require much of CPU power, it should be bandwidth efficient, and it should have a quality of service. The MQ usually, in other terms, stands for message query, or QE, depending on who you ask. But MQ here was IBM's product, so I can't really say what that stands for. It has been royalty-free as in 2010. I think it's also open source. It has become a ISO standard by, I think it was somewhere in June. So, for those who don't know Mqtt, how does it work? The Mqtt, what we know as a server, is called a broker. And of course, this broker, according to Wikipedia, sells and what buys and sells assets for others. It's a little bit almost like that. But the clients can actually send data into this Mqtt broker, such as temperature, for instance. So if you have something in your attic, you would have a topic that is called My Home on the server. And in that My Home, you would have your sensor. For instance, sensor 1. And that sensor will probably pull some data to the server saying the humidity or the temperature that you're experiencing in the attic right now. But of course, you can rename them to whatever you like. So you can have the O. Long Johnson. You just need to remember it later when you do your small program. So how does this work, basically? Taking the logistic, like this one here. I made this myself, by the way, thank you. Taking the logistics and the packet delivery, you would have the logistics sending data to the Mqtt server, in this case, the Mqtt main server broker. You would also have a sensor somewhere that will probably weigh the package and say that this packet weighs, in this case, 2,000 lbs. And the server would then be open so the transport truck can actually read the data and say, oh, this is too much. I can't carry this. And you also have someone actually monitoring everything, saying that, oh, there's a big package, we need a bigger truck, so let's just submit that one and get a bigger truck. But of course, you probably want the user interface friendly version, right? There we go. So let's just download it. So, according to TechTarget, this is how Mqtt actually set up today. And we start with transport and logistics, of course, and logistics, security and surveillance, and now I start to feel a little bit bad. You also have the industrial and energy. Since this is 4.6, right, we're talking about ICS and PLCs and all that fancy stuff. So MQTT is actually used in the ICS as well. Now, healthcare. We had a little bit of talk with Marie and Arian about healthcare and medical devices. And since MQTT is lightweight and very efficient, it would be very cool, maybe, to have that one in some kind of medical equipment. This is actually from the manual. This is actually what the manual says. Let's go through it. Please remember this. Devices could be compromised. Okay, that's specific enough, right? Data at rest in clients and servers might be accessible. Might. Protocol behaviors could have side effects such as timing attacks. Yeah, sure. Denial of service attacks. Where have we heard that one before? Communication could be intercepted, altered, rerouted, or disclosed. Emphasis. All right. Injection of spoofed control packages. And the manual also says MQTT solutions are often deployed in hostile communication environments. But we all know internet is such a kid-friendly place, right? Come on. So that is in the manual, and there's actually a link to the manual here. You can actually, to this section, unless they changed it. But yeah. Shodan, John Madley spoke a little bit about Shodan, and he actually indexes MQTT. So that's a good thing. So I started out with Shodan, see if I could find any MQTT brokers, aka servers, which of course I could. You see the top countries: China, United States, Singapore, Japan, Germany. Total of 17,711. And of course, some data. And here we only see the actual topics. So I would say the channels that you can subscribe to and get some data from. And what I wanted to do, which John sadly hadn't done yet, is I want to see what kind of data. Can I see what kind of data devices are sending to the server? And I also believe that there are more MQTT brokers out there than these 17,000. Could be that they didn't respond, or they closed, or depending on what time of day or day of the week. And according to some vendors and developers, you shall not subscribe to hashtag. So that's exactly what I did. Why is that so bad? Well, according to the MQTT, the hashtag actually specifies that you listen to everything. So you can go, for instance, myattic/hashtag, and that will listen to everything that you have in the topic of myattic. So what if I don't supply anything? I just put the hashtag in there. And this is known, by the way, by the MQTT developers, that you can just hashtag and get the data. So far, so good. But I wanted to scan the entire internet to extract data. You can use a nice user interface version created by Jens Dieters. It's for the Mac, it's called MQTT-FX. So that's the UI version of it, at least. However, it has some problem handling big data, but it works. So I did this is the lamest script ever, but it gets the job done. What this does, it actually connects to a server. I'm using that as an example, IP, and it subscribes to the hashtag topic. That allows me to specify an IP address, which I randomly took off Shodan, and run this script against it. My reaction, by the way, We'll get back to what exactly I reacted to. But with Jens Dieter's MQTT effects, you could actually see stuff like someone using some kind of fridge or text messaging system saying that I'm at home, your son. I also halfly censored this guy a little bit. He was streaming his live webcam over MQTT, so he was actually sitting in his living room. And this is the actual image. So it was a JFIF image that refreshed all the time, so I could probably do some kind of wrapping, but I just copied it into a binary file and viewed it with any image viewer there is. So he was sitting there typing away on his keyboard and smiling. I don't know. I don't want to know. So in PLC, I've found out a little bit the hard way after DEF CON. A lot of people were actually, if you told me that this was for ICS as well, then you have much more people here. Okay, so are you actually using this? Yeah, we use it internally. Okay, awesome. Why? It turns out they're actually using some kind of translation from the PLC or Modbus over MQTT and then displays something on a homepage somewhere or sends it in a language that their application understands. I don't know why you want to do that, but not my concern. Stuxnet, I think you heard that one before. It actually changed values in data, right? And it's kinda caused some people's deaths indirectly, of course. So, but we're focusing on the IoT as well. What would happen if I reflashed your refrigerator, for instance? I take a firmware, I make my own firmware, I send to the MQTT server or to your refrigerator that there's a new update, you can download it here. And it says, okay. That's a horrible scenario, isn't it? Any device that actually does firmware updates over MQTT to a MQTT broker online that is public, what if you can alter that? What if you can send malicious? What if I could say to this guy, I'm not at home, your son, or I need a diaper change, your son, or maybe some serious stuff. I need funds now. So what actually did I find? My first moment. And I actually censored this out. As you can see, the big X's are actually the censoring stuff. Get voicemails. You have the request. You have the session ID. And for those unfamiliar, the session ID is actually the authenticated session key, which I can reuse in order to gain access to whatever application it is that is running. You also have something that looks like base64 and actually was base64 that contained usernames, mobile phone numbers, office phone numbers, first name, last name, office phone, and even social security numbers. And you see the plus 46? It's not the 4.6 conference. This is in Sweden. So the fastest way to scan everything, now I actually took just one IP semi-randomly from Shodan, filtering the country to Sweden. The best thing is for me to use mass scan. And I would like to credit Robert Graham for mass scan because it's fast and it's efficient. The thing is, you can actually send data into a port with mass scan, but many people have not been able to. I've only seen Robert Graham actually do it, and others were like, how did you do that? I'm using the exact same query and it's not working. What the hell, man? And yeah, I thought I should give it a shot. And Robert Graham was like, yeah, mine is working. I don't know what's wrong with yours. Thanks. Mass scan is able to send data using the --hello string. And you can see I used all this as down here as well for those who are technical. And of course, according to his tutorial, you can set a destination port, which actually allows the packet to reach your destination port with the data that is being submitted. And this, by the way, is a base64 representative of me subscribing to hashtag. I thought to myself, this can't work, man. You can't just take the base64, dumping the data and taking the raw data out and just base64ing it and sending it. And it actually worked. So in one day, I scanned the entire internet. And I was listening for 30 seconds on each open MQTT server that I found. I got 2.8 million results, which I masked into ELK. For those who did the Shota Madely's course, you should have listened to ELK. ELK is awesome. It's pain to set up, at least for me. I mean, it was horrible. I came up with a number around 59,000 estimated brokers. Again, depending on time and period and how long and if it's actually active. What kind of example data did I get? Well, how about an emergency response system? We have a case of infectious Lassa fever. 1,411 people are infected. There is an expected 6.2 meter flood. And we have a case of infectious malaria, maybe. So, my next question, I got a lot of sensitive data. My next question would be, could I actually manipulate this? Could I send, and where does this end up? We don't know where this ends up. And a lot of people can argue, yeah, this got to be a test system, right? But I've seen activity that shows that most systems are not test systems. But we'll get to that. So, could I interact? Could I say that 500 people at the 4.6 conference in Stockholm got the zombie virus or got diarrhea from a chicken or whatever? So I managed to get my results into ELK, and that means that I can actually map stuff as well. So I can map where all the MQTT servers are located. In this case, I have a highlight over Australia as well. So you can actually zoom in, you can actually click, and you can see the IPs and the owner and get the actual data for it. So, we found emergency response systems, we also found earthquake systems. And funny thing, 40 minutes after my talk at DEF CON, there was an 8-point-something earthquake in Japan. All of a sudden, I was sitting down with some reporters, drinking some coffee, relaxing, and all of a sudden, they mentioned there's an earthquake in Japan, and phone started ringing, and he called people up, and then he looked at me and said, there was no earthquake, it was a malfunction in one of their servers. All right, okay. 40 minutes after my talk, where I mentioned earthquake systems in Japan in one sentence, and mass scans, so how quick could someone fire up a scan towards entire Japan if I can scan the internet in a day and take the first MQTT server they can find and just log in and do this? Now, I'm not saying it could be. More scary stuff. Now we're talking about the industrial control system and industrial stuff. We have an oil pipeline pressure control server. You can see the site name, location, GPS, FTP username, FTP password. You can also see the flow and the current pressure of the pipe. Still, question remains, can I manipulate this one? We also have this one here, which is questionable. It contained a person's name. It also contains the government name. And as you can see, it's tracking something which I was able to follow on Google Maps. You can see like the blip and the geolocation updated, so it was following through the roads. And you can see the speed. You can see that it's not on low battery. It's an electrical connect. Is someone monitoring someone? I would say so based on the name that I took out, that someone is actually monitoring someone or something. Cars, right? Do cars connect through MQTT? Yes, they do. At least some are. You can see the actual brake force, and you can see the speed as well as GPS longitude, latitude, and I could also follow this one if I wanted to. Even worse, let's just put our usernames and passwords through MQTT. So when I connect and subscribe, I get this message containing usernames and passwords and DBs, and come on, it's got to be a test server, right? Sweden, the country where I'm from, wasn't that bad. 333 brokers. And you can find stuff like the kitchen freezer. So this might well be a demo thing or a real thing, but if you change the temperature, if you could, and see someone ranting on flashback. There was also firmware updates. Nice, firmware updates. So I can actually see what kind of URL the downloading firmware is from. That means that I could download it. Or could I tell it to download my firmware? A small demo. What happens when you subscribe to, now I'm going to subscribe to a public IoT server to watch some fairies. So this is one of those Eclipse, iot.eclipse.org. You can actually see the data coming in, latitude, longitude. And those servers, especially the iot.eclipse.1 and the IBM one, are actually test servers. Now I managed to get a hold of one of the guys for the IBM server, and I asked, come on, do you get calls if you reboot the server? Are people calling you and saying, bring it back up? And he said, yes, there are actually people calling and said, you need this up now. We're running our systems against it. So on the public test servers, people are running live data that is actually legit. But let's get back to that. It's going to get much, much worse. Remember the question I asked, can I send data to it? I actually can. That means that everything you have seen, 99% sure that I can send data to every single thing. I can at least create my own like channels or topics and send data to that. That means the firmware, I can change the URL on the firmware. For the cars, what happens if I change the brake? Same thing with the steering. Oil pipeline pressure, what if I change the value to say it's not flowing correctly? Will the industrial control system automatically pump more oil through to compensate? And what will happen if the pressure is too much? Well, the pipe will burst, people might get hurt. All right, you're asking yourself, yeah, they're mostly test servers, they gotta be. And of course, there needs to be some kind of trust thing that it only accepts requests from valid MQTT brokers. I mean, and of course, IoT gateway, we can use that one as well. But remember that these MQTT devices are designed for low voltage and low CPU type things. So IoT gateway is not always the solution here. What kind of protection can you have? Of course, read the manual, enable username and password. Use encryption, TLS. It's the official one, of course. And segmentation and trusts, maybe IP whitelisting, that would be good. My whoops list that I made. You decided to connect your company to the MQTT broker you have. You decided running ABS emergency response broadcast system over MQTT was an awesome idea. Attaching around 15,000 ATMs to a broker that is exposed online. Now this is a cloud solution. I'm trying to work out which bank it is. No, it's got to be test. No. I see live stuff when people pull money out, how much money there is left. I see error messages, I see dates, I see times. Or even taking the data, MQTT, and pushing it onto a homepage. So the raw data that you get from your MQTT server or broker you have, just take that value and stick that on a homepage. What can possibly go wrong, right? Here we have a cross-site scripting attack for those who are not. And this is using a default template on how to implement MQTT to homepage. Nice. This I couldn't talk about in the United States, or else I would live in silver bracelets. This is actually the official United States government's MQTT server that handles earthquakes. So I could basically write this if I wanted to and say that there is a magnitude 8 earthquake in Las Vegas, or even worse, I could inject something into the homepage, because this one updates frequently, live. So I can inject whatever I want on the homepage and attack everyone that is surfing. And here we have an example of the Japanese application saying that there was an earthquake. Hopefully a coincidence. So, for me, while sitting at the white throne at home, I thought it's lightweight, it's efficient, it's designed to be a botnet. If I could have 100,000, maybe 200,000, even more clients connected to any random MQTT public broker, it would be awesome for me to send commands to all those. So I just said one command and it's executed by everything that is infected. So yes, I did the first ever botnet over MQTT. And by the way, yes, I've highlighted this to the developers as well. You see I'm executing my payload. And my Windows XP, what is diabeting my master? I can then, of course, subscribe to the host name with the get CMD and send CMD. Then I go to publish, and then I send dir, which is the equivalent, and you will have command execution over MQTT. So you can use botnet style with multiple clients, but I know we're running short, so. My colleague coined the phrase cyber nuke. So if you can harm people with this, the oil pipeline pressure, or imagine I found nuclear power plants with the ability to change the radiation, which there are, by the way. And no, those are not test servers. If I could change the radiation level to always say that it's low, even when it's very high and people are working in there, and the fans don't go on and purge the air, people will get killed and be hurt. And I can tell the fire alarms in a building to go off and have all the emergency dispatch on one side of the map while I do my nefarious things on the other side. And I want to address this as well. I mean, it's nice, but it's not forced. That means that if MQTT would force you to have a username password and force encryption, I wouldn't be standing here talking about this today. But MQTT is an awesome protocol. It's really nice. I like it. It needs some polish. So, what's left? We have around 59,000 brokers, servers. We have sensors, ATMs, cars. I would like to leave you with one sentence that should be obvious. do not expose MQTT over the internet. Thank you very much, guys.
Well, yes, that was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very
Thank you.
interesting. And how come developers on this scale, which I believe they are good, in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they do good protocols. How come they don't think security while developing these kind of protocols?
Usually, it tends to happen in two ways. The first way is probably, I'll just follow this tutorial here, and we'll set it up and we'll go. And we don't have to care about this now because this is on a test server. And then this test server follows all the way until launch. So that application and solution that you just build is based on the test MQTT because it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's, I would say.
Let's have a look at this side. Should IoT products be required to have security certifications? What is your opinion on that?
Yes, I believe so. I believe everything from the ground up, even from building them to actually having some kind of IoT standard when deploying it, especially in ICS environments. At home, maybe they should have a brand that says, we will update the firmware for 10 years and do security fixes for 10 years. So that's just my opinion, at least.
Won't that make things more expensive?
Yes, and that's something that the manufacturer needs to take into account. If they make the product way more secure than they do default, then the end cost will not be as high as it is today.
Yeah. So if my competitor decides not to certificate and still, deliver cheap products I can get somewhere, I'm done in business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's not really easy.
No.
No. Okay. So we had only one question which you already addressed.
Yes.
The one with Auth and Crypto. Can
Yes.
you go further into that? Will they do that kind of development?
There is a talk. They kind of excluded me from their Google group since they thought I was actually attacking the protocol, and it's not the problem. Protocol is awesome. But they didn't like the fact that I actually addressed it. But if you have this by default, and from what I heard, they're actually going to implement something like that. So in the next version of MQTT, you will actually see username, password, and hopefully encryption as well.
Okay. So with that, I will thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And of course, you will have this certificate of appreciation from the organizers.
Hey.
And a very nice gift
Oh, nice.
Cold Winter Nights,
Yes.
I believe.
Nice, very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, guys.
And Lucas, you will stay around for tonight?
Yeah, I'll go in a couple of hours, but so